To be fair. It's time to talk about the meta on Monday or Tuesday, as usual for you. So Meta Tuesday, but it doesn't flow off the tongue as well as Meta Monday.
It doesn't. The alliteration really sells it, you know? I think
Indeed.
we've made this joke for about 8 weeks straight now. People must be getting sick of hearing
Yeah,
about me being.
I'm old. I don't I forget about things all the time. This is always new to me. My brain's broken and I'm an old man. So basically, this is a new joke every time I tell
It's like when you watch war movies and you don't know what actually happens at the end, even though they
it.
happened 50 years ago.
All of the stuff. So we got a new meta. It's
We
got a lot
do.
of. It's got some of the old characters in it though. And
It
if you
does.
live on an island, you get to play Marines.
Yeah, very true.
Let's start with that. Tell me about these Iron Hands because we've got Into the Hellstorm Gladius on England. Iron Hands 6-0, Orcs, Thousand Sons, Drakarian, Thousand Sons again, all going 5-1. We had Iron Hands in Canada actually going 5-0. Grey Knights, Custodes, Knights, Dark Angels, Drakarian, Space Wolves, all 4-1. Um, but we've had a lot of Iron Hands doing very, very well in England, for instance. I mean, like their win rate in the UK is literally 71% and
Yeah, look,
60% over the last 3 weeks.
you've got to caveat it right. Like these events this weekend are quite small, and that's not to take the achievement away from anybody, but we're probably not seeing maximum representation of top meta factions duking it out here. But you're right. Like, what's more telling is the 60+% win rate over 3 weeks. That's it's really interesting, right? I think I think it's just odd to see Iron Hands pop up and win two events in a week, and a lot of people will just be like, "What's going on here?" And it's kind of the first the first stage of a bandwagon jump for some Marine players, maybe. But there's probably a few things going on. You were talking to me just before we started about the terrain. Now, I actually don't know too much about the terrain over there, but you probably know a little bit better than I do. Does that sort of play in the favor of, I guess,
100%.
these
I think that it's,
gunfight up?
well, they have a more open firing lanes for sure. They've had, historically over this edition, they've had just less terrain as a whole. And not even just less terrain, just less, I guess, obscuring terrain. They've had pieces and stuff where you could hide a lot of infantry, but you could still fire over with all these dreadnoughts, planes and everything else that can just be blasted. Obviously, obscuring didn't care for the flyers, but the biggest thing is that they just have more lanes than, say, for instance, a GW terrain, which you can hide fairly effectively, obscuring in the middle. On the second set of boards, first day you can get a little bit of firing lanes, but if you're trying to go undefeated, it's very, very difficult to get good lines over the entirety of like GW terrain, for instance. And then you've got FLG, for instance, the ITC terrain, which is player place. So you know that almost always first turn, you're going to have not a lot of targets. You know what I mean? If your opponent's just setting it up correctly, they're going to have a first turn where they're denying a lot and probably a second turn where they're going to hide fairly effectively. So it takes a lot of that away. Now, to be fair, I really do enjoy the fact that they've brought the Minotaurs and the character Dreadnought out so they can actually have two character Dreadnoughts in that list. It's actually pretty nasty just because of the fact that you just have two guys just sitting back being untargetable, just get, firing most of the game. If you can get line of sight for the entire game, or at least decent, you know what I mean? And I think that that's a big deal in the meta right now. I feel that a lot of the top players have realized more and more that they can just barely peek their head out. A lot of times it's better to kill one thing than two things as long as you don't get shot in return, you know what I mean? So you just get
Mhm.
that value over the course of the game.
Do you think this I guess this win rate is kind of inflated then because so many of these events have been in the UK the last few weeks? Because there's like I'm looking through BCP and there's like nothing from the US, there's nothing from
There,
like
I think
almost any from
the,
Europe. It's all in the UK.
well, the UK, weirdly enough, GW it just hasn't run one of their events in the UK, even though that's where they are.
Yeah.
So it's all the GW trains been run here in the States. So it's a big deal. And then if you're not playing there, even a lot of the Canada events are also running the player placed, like the FLG and stuff. And some of them have slightly different ways that you're doing it. You know what I mean? But all in all, you're basically putting out terrain that's going to be very conducive to being able to hide and bounce from place to place, which is one of the reasons I think Drukhari's done really, really well after the nerf. Basically, you took away their natural predators, you made them slightly more expensive, and then they just went, we're okay with being slightly more expensive as long as those armies that were killing the crap out of us aren't in the meta anymore. So I think that they're here to stay, tell you the truth. I mean, they've been doing very, very well. They've, even in this small set over the weekend, still had a large amount of games played with them. So weirdly enough, Iron Hands had 71 games, Drukhari had 76. So just a lot of Iron Hands players out there, at least over the weekend. And they've been popping up more and more, especially in the UK. So what are your thoughts on Drukhari's place in the meta right now? But let's just go where the meta is right now. Let's talk about the big bads, because we had Grey Knights winning an event over in Tennessee. Drukhari won in England and in the States here. Drukhari won 2 in England. They've been just playing crazy amounts of tournaments, by the way. UK meta, you guys are killing it, baby. Loving every minute of it. Loving. But they just are constantly holding 40 to 50 person events just everywhere in England. So we had WG Presents Fun and Fluff, 49 players. Warfare 2021, High Street England, 50 players. 36 players, Factorum, Forest Road, Into the Hellstorm. They had 42. It's just like 40 plus player events just every single weekend all over the place. So they're killing it. You know what I mean? They came out of lockdown swinging away with the big sticks. But what are your thoughts here? I mean, we've got Grey Knights, we've got Drukhari. Are they going anywhere? Are they staying for the long haul, or are we waiting for the rest of everybody to get their points and see what happens?
Look, so I think GK is a pretty much king. They play in every phase of the game. They're so mobile. The damage output is really good when you need it to be. They shoot, they fight, they kind of do everything really well. And I think that, look, perhaps the Dread Knight heavy list isn't necessarily the way to go here. I'm still a bigger fan of running more infantry, and there's a lot of things to be said about Purifier squads with -1 damage in Tide of Shadows just being on objectives and being really difficult for your opponent to shoot dead. I think GKs are going to be king. I think the Meat Mountain Drukhari list is really good, and I've been playing a bunch of games with it, and I really enjoy playing it. I think it's quite powerful, but the maneuverability is not the same as the old Drukhari list was, and that's really what I guess pushed them over the edge. The advance and charge was really, really powerful, and it still is, but it's less powerful when you have less units that are advancing and charging and taking the board out of transports for the extra 3-inch movement multiple turns in a row. You really just don't have that anymore. And Grey Knights have all the ability. Grey Knights' mobility is untouched. They've got Deep Strike, they've got Fire and Fade Interceptors, they've got Shunt, they've got Gate. They can just not go anywhere, but they have the ability to continue to take the board for the entire game. And that's a really, really important thing.
It's weird. I've been playing them both. I've been playing GK because we know that I ride the bandwagon pretty hard. I've been playing both GK and Drukhari, and I've been playing a list of Drukhari that utilizes a little bit of both. Like, for instance, the one I'm taking over the weekend to the GW event is going to be 2 sets of 2 Talos, 2 sets of 2 Chronos, 2 sets of 4 Grots, but then I'm also running 2 sets of 5 Strife Hellions. I'm running the Triptych Witch, Competitive Edge Girl. I'm running a Court of the Archon, running 5 units of Rax. I'm trying to put all the stuff that I really felt made Drukhari strong for me and these other elements, you know what I mean, that are really, really nice. I actually really, really, really like Grotesques right now into the meta.
Yeah.
But -1 damage Grots feel really good, just because they're so annoying to get rid of. And they have a huge amount of damage to attacks, you know what I mean? It's just you're swinging for the cheap seats. And if you go against something that's super hard, you are equipped with the gauntlet, you know what I mean? So you can just fish for mortals if that's what is really needed, you know what I mean? So
yeah, Grotesques are great. I've played a bunch of games with them. I was running 5-3-3 before. I'm just running 5 and 3. now. And I was shoving three up one flank, three up the other flank, sort of on their own, and just letting them do their thing. And they skirmish with all of the trash in your opponent's army really, really well. They require real firepower to kill. Even three grotesques requires actual firepower to kill.
Yeah, you
You
can't
know,
just bounce off it. So
exactly right. Let me ask you a question, and this is not necessarily a Meta Monday question, but I think it's something that I see a lot in the US, and actually a few of the lists of the UK as well. The two-man Talos unit. Tell me about this thing, because I don't understand it. I feel like if one dies, that unit now just does nothing. But everyone seems to run it. You and Siegs both run it. A lot of people in the UK have been running it. I can't justify not having three at a unit, because I feel like as soon as one model dies, my unit's just trash now.
see,
Like,
the thing is you still have a decent amount of attacks. I'm running it with the injectors, so you have the mortals and the attacks. And the thing is that I don't need it to be a huge brick. It's just super irritating. It flies, and it's got 4 melta-guns. I mean, it's got 4, heat lances on that. So even though they're hitting on 4s, it's still a big deal on that. They still have a decent amount of clearing power, and I'm not using it as a brick. I'm using it as one more tool, and it gets too expensive for me. I'm also allergic to any unit that costs basically more than 100 points. That already makes me lose my mind that I'm spending 200 points there. So, but it does work on that because you can't focus any one piece, and that's what I've always thought Drukhari is very, very good at. Because most armies, even when you make yourself very, very durable, they have enough lethality to put you down. You know what I mean? No matter what it is in the meta, because everybody's bringing the pain. So even at -1 damage, a good toughness, a good invuln and a feel no pain, if somebody wants you to die, you're still going to die. You know what I mean? That's my problem is that if I have bigger units, I take a much bigger hurt from that. And people either have to overkill my 2-man units, or I tend to have a dude running around. And I am playing Homunculus right now to heal guys up. You know what I mean? So it's a big deal on that. T7, it does make a big difference in some of the guns that are being shot around. So it's just something to think about on that is they still have a decent amount of hitting power. It's just not the banging. The thing that I would actually look at running more of, tell you the truth, is I have thought about running 3-man Chronos before I would run 3-man Talos. And tell you the truth, playing more and more Talos, and I've already put what I'm going to play. I actually think I might just run more Grots than more Talos. Basically load up more on go 3-man Chronos units instead of 2-man, and then run 0 Talos and more Grotesque. Like maybe 3,
yeah,
5.
see, that's a really interesting point. I think, look, the Kronos, I've found, if you're running them as dark tech, and there's an argument to be made both ways, but if you're running them as dark tech, they do such a significant amount of damage, and they're a real prime candidate for Never Stationary, for Fire and Fade, because you can just pop them out, shoot, clear an objective off, and then be safe again. And there's real value in that. Like, we're seeing this in a lot of armies. This used to be a tactic that Dark Reapers and things like that employed in the Eldar army. This is something that people were finding ways to do with the old Devout Push, where you'd move something up a level of a ruin so you could see out, you'd shoot, and you'd Devout Push back down to the bottom floor. And that's been a really powerful mechanic for such a long time. And I feel like the Kronos use that really well. They're auto hitting weapons. You can pop out the 18-inch range butt guns. They reach out and touch things. So they're really effective. But being able to hop back to safety is really big. I do agree with you, though. I think the Grotesques are, one of the, I suppose, best things about that army. They kind of hit with the same profile as the Talos do as well. They hit with AP2, 2 damage if you're using the Scalpels. Obviously, they don't do the same as the Ecor and the Gauntlet. But in this meta, AP2, 2 damage,
Good.
outside of, like, the Mirror and outside of, like, Death Guard, it's kind of just as good.
It's a volume of attacks too for very cheap. The 5 points made a big difference. 5 points a guy in a squad like that makes literally over the army makes a big difference. I mean, when you look at those things. So I actually think that they're probably the bigger winners at that point in time. The Talos for me are just irritating, and they have basically a bonus gun. The threat of the gun is scarier than anything else, and it plays well into the Grey Knights because they have to respect that you might just hit with all your heat lances. You probably won't, but you know what I mean? As the Grey Knights player, you have to respect that. What do you think, Grey
Yeah.
Knights? Go ahead.
The multiple Talos gives you the lances back that you
Uh-oh. I'm losing you for about a minute there. We got a robot here. Not good. What's happening? No bueno. Don't die, everyone. Whoa. Whoa, Raggy. That could be bad. All of the bad some of the time. There we go.
I can hear you.
There we
I
go.
can hear you.
You're back.
Yeah.
You're back. You're
Hello.
back. Sorry, everyone. We're back. We're good to go.
We're good to go. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but I could hear Brad, so I'm going to blame it on
US technology.
We were literally talking about Australian internet before this. Excellent. I was saying that very much like you, I often don't shoot my raiders in the old MSU style Drakari army, but having the threat of dumping 6 lances into something is often a big enough threat that your opponent really has to worry about that. And now you've got these Talos that are running around with them, and I feel like you can't get rid of the Talos entirely. Like, you need to have the threat of those guns, because they can just sometimes pop off and, really punch up above their weight. Most of the time they won't. Most of the time they'll do
but it's a threat.
absolutely
and
nothing.
we've talked about this a lot. The higher you go in the level of games, you know what I mean, taking the meta, just the threat of anything is a big deal for the games. You know what I mean? Because you have to respect that could happen. You know what I mean? So I think it's a big deal. I think when you're looking at the meta and you're looking at your options against them, you don't always have to have the greatest answer in your army. You don't want to chase the meta and put only Meltas and everything else. You know what I mean? We've seen that before. And what I think that's why a couple of the new armies did so well, Drakari, one of them, is the old meta was so low shots, high fire, high damage firepower. Oh, that's going to be terrible.
Oh, sorry. You were breaking up as well again there. Oh, this is not great.
So.
Okay, you're back. It's all good. Sorry. I don't know what's going on. Fix your internet, Brad.
It's all terrible. Damn US internet. And we are reaching out around the globe here, so I can drill straight down.
Pretty much, eh? Yeah, cool. Well, look, I think that kind of covers Drakari, right? That's pretty much where we're at with Drakari. I think that, look, I think Meat Mountain's going to be the most competitive way to play it for the time being. I think the MSU list lost too much stuff. It just feels like there's not enough stuff in that army to play for 5 turns anymore.
I think it's going to be a combo, literally a combo. It's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a 3-3-3-3-3 everywhere. I do think it's going to be a combination that's going to be the army that takes on everything. Speaking of taking on everything, let's talk about some stuff, because I got it in my background and I put myself as the knight. Knights have been popping up here and there since they've done that. What do you think the future of knights are right now?
Look, I'm going to be honest. I think this is going to be Knights got a shiny new rule. Everyone who owns Knights is going to play Knights for a couple of weeks, then realize they're still not that much better, and then pop back to what they were playing before. I think that the OBSEC makes a big difference for the primary, but the army still really struggles with secondaries.
The third secondary is rough sometimes, especially if your opponent just decides to, especially when you play certain missions where you can just deny. You can just not play the game against the Knights and just go, I've got a Codex secondary. You don't. So until they get...
And look, and sometimes it's even like 2 secondaries. Sometimes they really struggle to even pick 2 good ones, It's the primary scoring is much, much better now, right? Like, let's be real. The primary scoring for the Knights is significantly easier to achieve. But yeah, keeping up with like Purifying Ritual against Grey Knights, I'm not sure how you do it effectively. It's just really, really hard.
Yeah, I'll give you that. We still have the rest of the points updates too, so I don't know how much that's going to shift everything in the power right now. So I'm really wondering where we're going to go from there too. So, I mean, I wouldn't go buy anything right this second, because we saw AdMech points, we saw Drakari points, but that's literally what they told us, is that's from the document that's going to update all the points. Chapter Pew, Munistorm, there was 2 of them last year. So whichever one that is the Munistorm Field Manual or the Chapter Approved, whichever one it shows up in, bless you,
Thank you.
is going to be a big deal. I'm hoping in that. We've had a lot of Necron games played, by the way. They've had a bad win rate, but I do think that they're going to pop up. I think right now they're really, really in the testing phase. I feel like everybody's bringing their my first idea to the tournament. What do you think about Necrons right now? I know that they still need a little bit more. They need some points. They need a little bit of shakeup, but I think that they've got play. I think that they're going to have, or at least more play. How about that? Definitely going to have more play than they did before. So that's kind of where my head's at. I don't think they're good. They're definitely not popping into, S or A tier kind of armies, but I think that they have more tournament play for sure.
Yeah. Look, it's just opened options, right? The core change has just given you a whole lot more that you can do with the army, a bunch more combos. It's really weird because when the Necron book came out, everyone was like, oh, well, look, this core keyword's going to be really, really rare. And then Marines came out and Contemptor Dreads have it for some reason. So, it's just a bit odd. And I'm glad to see them get that. Look, obviously the OBSEC pregame move, Dynasty, is still, a really powerful thing. It still gives you a lot of board control, but again, it's good rules on bad data sheets. It's expensive Necron warriors that aren't really all that durable, that do almost nothing with their shooting anyway. You're paying a real premium for those units. You're paying for reanimation protocols. But if I wanted to play an army that reanimates, I'd play Terminus Est and I'd pay the CP to reanimate my Poxwalkers that cost nothing and actually do mortal wounds and actually go and fight things. Lichguard aren't that good of a combat unit. They feel pretty good when you look at their stat line, but then it's like the delivery mechanism is so hard. Similar with Wraiths, even Wraiths getting
They can get in transports now because they're core.
It's like I think Wraiths just sorry, not Wraiths. I think Necrons just need a bit of an overhaul. I think it's points. Honestly, I think you can tone down Necrons to the same. Sorry, tone up Necrons to the same degree you tone down Admech and Drukhari, and they'll probably be all right. If you got 200 more points in that army, it's probably all right. I don't think it's even busted. I think it's probably about where they should be. But Necron warriors, like some of the characters are incredibly overcosted. Most of the units are incredibly overcosted.
They need protocols to be fixed too. But
yeah,
I think that it's weird because there's been a ton of Necron games and Necron players though. So, and that's actually even before they had that. You know what I mean? So it's that could be because everybody got 53 Indominus boxes. You know what I mean? And it was half Necrons in it. So you've got a lot of people playing them. But I mean, they are represented heavily in the tournament scene right now. So that is something to, when you're looking at the meta, they are there. You know what I mean? One of the things that I've seen over in Europe, though, and I wanted to bring it up, I don't know if you guys have had it in Australia at all. We haven't had it here in the States at all. It's one of the reasons I brought Necrons up, is they've been bringing all vehicle Necrons in a lot of the team tournaments and stuff like that. There's been a ton of just denial, Ghost Ark, Doomsday, just the big quantum shielding tanks and just basically trying to not give up points. Have you guys had any of that? Your face looked like I was literally just trying to sell you some land.
So I played against something similar, I reckon 6 months ago, and it was awful. It wasn't very good. But no, not recently, not that I've seen anywhere, at least not that's done well, because I feel like it might have happened. I just don't know about it because it might not have done very well. But no, I haven't seen it. I just don't feel like it's all that good. Is it actually good? I guess in bigger teams where you need to find an 8th list, then it's probably a contender for that spot. But our team tournaments tend to be 4 or 5 man over here. And I think that once you have your Grey Knights, your Drukhari, your Marine flavor list of choice, your Orc list, there's like one list left to choose. And I feel like Necrons are really competing to get that 5th spot.
It's more of an 8-man. I think it's when you get to the 8th slot, you're looking for an irritating option. I think that's what they have. I haven't seen it here, but like I said over there, they also run significantly more team tournaments. Everybody has no more team tournaments in the States.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the 8-man tournaments, I've seen it a decent amount in the over in Europe. So it's one of those things where I'm curious about. Speaking of curiosity, Orcs.
I was about to go to Orcs as well. Great minds, Brad.
I think that Orcs have a lot of play in this meta right now. I know they've been people throw tomatoes at me for doing it, but like I said before, I think we talked in the orc clinic. I really like that orc list, a hybrid type list now with just more stuff and more ability to play the game.
Have you guys had the Depcopter list pop up yet?
We've a little bit of it. I haven't seen it a ton. We saw like a little bit, of scrap jets, and then just more sorteds of bikes and everything else. I don't think I've seen the final product basically, but I've seen that type of list come out. And it feels pretty good, man. It plays the objective very well, and it's got a surprising amount of speed and firepower.
Yeah, I'm actually terrified of that list playing the Meat Mountain. I feel like the Rocket's just
I think that
like
list,
you said, is going to make it a bit more balanced.
yeah,
It has a bit more of everything. But yeah, the Orc list is solid. Like the Orc faction rather is solid. Like there's a lot of really good stuff there that's been overshadowed by the buggies for so long. It's pretty cool to see people start playing around with different variants of that stuff and not just insert buggies, Control C, Control V. There's my army list.
yeah. But the thing is like it might not be as abusive and killy first turn, but I actually think it's scarier as far as if orcs had any bad firing phase and you just didn't do as much as they wanted to, you went over and grabbed things and you could just kind of win the game against them. Now they have the maneuverability and firepower that they can sustain over the game. I actually think it's a little bit scarier. You don't have as much worry about getting first turn rolled, but you have more worry about just getting second, third, fourth turn